Welcome to the Music is My Life podcast from Berklee Online. I'm your host, Pat Healy, and take note of Bruce Hornsby, which you likely already have because he had mega hits in the mid to late 1980s. The Way It Is, Mandolin Rain, The Valley Road, or maybe you know his piano playing on The End of the Innocents by Don Henley. You might also know him as the sometime keys player for the Grateful Dead, or as a collaborator of Justin Vernon and Bon Iver, which began with a cover of a song by the Grateful Dead. Well, Bruce Hornsby has a brand new album out May 27th. It's called Flicted, and it features collaborators Danielle Haim, Rob Moose, Y Music, Ezra Koenig from Vampire Weekend, Blake Mills, basically everybody. And however you know him, as a band leader of The Range, The Noisemakers, the Bruce Hornsby Trio, or his collaborations with The Dead or Ricky Skaggs, Bruce has been playing for most of his 67 years. He's won Grammys for pop and bluegrass and even been nominated for a country Grammy. Tupac sampled his music. Basically, he's had a hand in everything. And his first musical memory happened when he was so young that he probably wouldn't even remember it if his family hadn't recorded it. Let's let him tell you all about it.
Well, the first musical memory probably wouldn't be a memory if it hadn't been recorded on an old Wallensack reel-to-reel recording machine. There are tapes that exist. We've lost them subsequently, so we hope to find them at some point. But there's a tape of me singing Hound Dog and Zorro, the theme from Zorro, you know, out of the night when the full moon is bright comes the horseman known as Zorro. The bold renegade carves the Z with his blade, the Z that stands for Zorro, and on and on. They have Hound Dog, Zorro, and an old Pat Boone song called With the Wind and the Wane, as I said it then at age 3, in her hair. With the wind and the wane in her hair. I guess I was probably 3.5, 4, maybe. My younger brother has heard singing Charlie Brown. He's a clown. He's going to get caught. Just you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me? So it's a great fun tape. I hope we find it sometime. Shaggy's Dog, my older brother singing, just tearing it up because he's all of 5 or 6. So he's really got it together. We grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia, home of William and Mary. So there were concerts around. In the mid-'60s, we saw Ravi Shankar and Ala Raka and Kamala Chakravarti playing ragas at Phi Beta Kappa Hall right across from where we grew up. My mom used to drag us to all these things, the Mikado, Kiss Me Kate, and the Navy Choir concert, the William and Mary Choir concerts, et cetera, et cetera. So we were inundated by all this sort of artsy information as kids. First concert I went to was Peter, Paul, and Mary at the William and Mary football stadium. And I was so into it that I went out and bought their album.
Do you remember the first time you sat at the keyboard and felt a connection?
Well, there are two answers to that. The first time I sat at a keyboard was age 7 or 8. Purportedly, I asked to take lessons. I asked my mom if I could take piano lessons. Well, so she hooked me up with lessons. Just myself first, then the other guys got in a little bit. But I only did this for about a year, maybe a year plus, before I just didn't want to do it anymore. So there was no real connection there. I took lessons in a funeral home, Garrison Funeral Home. So you had to walk the long walk up to the 3rd floor where the piano did reside. I would walk by caskets and embalming fluid. You know, at age 7, 8, that was not something you really wanted to keep doing.
Did it reflect in the material you chose at all?
Oh, no. I was learning the standard. John Thompson teaching little fingers to play. We learned such classics as the Volga Boatman. Here we go in a row to the birthday party. That's probably one of the first things I learned. Learning how to read. Every Good Boy Does Fine, all that. Speaking of Every Good Boy Does Fine, I'd like to shout out, there's a great new book by the amazing classical virtuoso Jeremy Denk. It's a memoir. For musos, it's totally interesting and gripping. He's such a great writer as well. So Every Good Boy Does Fine. So that was my first first moment with the piano, but it really struck me when I was 17. My older brother had gone away to prep school in New England, so he was much less provincial than we were. We had the top 40 station and the soul station, and that's what we heard. And that was great, but that was fun. But he came home and turned us on to all this interesting, less known in the mainstream music. I know it sounds crazy to think that Elton John was once that, but in this case, he was. The first song that really smacked me in the face in the best way was Amarina from Tumbleweed Connection, his second American record. It's maybe the one Elton John record for the next 30, 40 years after that didn't have a hit on it, but it's one of his greats to me. And so we were riding down to Yorktown, Virginia on the Colonial Parkway, and my brother was in his GTO with his 8-track tape machine, and he stuck in this big fat tape, the 8-track, and so he put on this one song, although it's in the middle of the record, that's the first song he played. And it just grabbed me deeply. And that, plus the great Joe Cocker records that he also turned me on to, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, with Leon Russell, Chris Stainton, that great piano, that also grabbed me hard and would not let go. So because of Elton and Leon, I got into it. So two answers. 7, 8 years old, didn't really take, and then 17 or so really took.
Now, when you did sit back down at the keyboard, did those lessons from 10 years previously, did they still retain, or it was fresh start, tabula rasa? No,
but I did have a little prior knowledge. My older brother, who turned me on to this music, Bobby Hornsby, he was the real muso of the family. I was more of a jock at the time, and so, but I had little bands playing guitar. I was a guitar player then. And I wrote my little songs at age of 6th grade, 12, 13 years old. But I wasn't serious about it. I liked hoops more. So he needed me when I was in 9th grade to play keyboards on an old Farfisa organ in this soul band he was playing with down in Newport News, Virginia, Newport News. We say Newport, the Newports here, you'd say, the local patois. And so he taught me the basic chords, the basic triads, that so I could play Midnight Hour. Local beach music greats like Working for My Baby by Lennis Getz, or Put Me Down Easy by Charlie McLennan and the Magnificents. That local beach music was a big deal around here. So I learned those chords. So I had a little bit of knowledge in that way. And then just started picking it up by ear, and it always came fairly naturally, fairly easily to me. And so there was a little bit of knowledge again from my older brother.
Was that Bobby Hightest and the Octane Kids, or?
That was Bobby Hightest. Yeah, Bobby Hornsby of Bobby Hightest and the Octane Kids fame. That's right. My indoctrination into Grateful Dead music. Yeah, a few years later, he was at UVA, and he was in a total freak fraternity. They got thrown off campus for drug violations. They used to drop acid, paint their faces, and go play intramural volleyball. They were lucky to hit one ball. They would all exult if somebody actually made contact with the ball, because they were just flying. So that was a hilarious, beautiful era. Bygone. Don't see much of that anymore in American colleges and universities. Unfortunately, from where I sit, it's too bad. Way more odd and interesting and crazy then than now. Much more buttoned up now. They were deeply into the Dead at the Beta House.
So then when you went to school, you're how many years behind him?
I'm 2 years younger than Bobby Hornsby, but I guess he was quite the young academician, and he skipped a grade. He skipped 4th grade. He went from 3rd to 5th. So then he was 3 years ahead of me. So he's a class of 70 high school guy, and I'm a class of 73.
Nice. So when you went to college, I guess you started Richmond, right?
Yes. Okay. You read the bio, right?
Yeah, I found out the information. But so were you as wild and experimental as your brother there?
Oh, not in that way. No.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. I mean, even when I started playing, then 16 years later, imagine I was Brucey Hornsby playing Fender Rhodes and singing lead on the Grateful Dead songs, the Octane Kids. And then fast forward 16 later, and I start winging it with them with no rehearsal at Madison Square Garden with the Grateful Dead. You know, the guys who hung out in those old hippie days in Charlottesville, Virginia, they all came to the Garden. Now I get chills thinking about that, because that was just obviously an amazing paint yourself into the mural moment. And it continued again, you know, for 20 months, about 100 shows. I told them when they asked me to help them through this tough time after Brent Midland died, I said, okay, I'm fine to help you until Vince gets up to speed, because he wasn't as sort of familiar with the music as I was. And I've been friends with them for a few years from opening concerts with them, with my band, The Range. I told them, but if you guys dose me, I'm out. So, maybe I should have been dosed. That would have been good for me. Maybe that was my buttoned up time. You know, no, I never really embraced the Beta Theta Pi aesthetic. Because once I got into music, frankly, I was so deeply involved, and I was a real heavy grinder, a heavy woodshedder. And so I just wanted to really grok the whole playing field. And so I wasn't much of an imbiber yet,
right,
or ever really.
So it's interesting, though, that if we do look at your schooling, where you did some time at Berklee, and most people who do time at Berklee, they'll drop out to start their career, but you dropped out to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I was a bit of a school hopper, as you've seen, 3 different colleges. Freshman year, Richmond. I got into the accelerated program at Berklee, so I did freshman and sophomore year in 2 semesters at Berklee. And then I took a semester off. Okay, so most of the people that you know of who left early to start their career, they were these sprung from Zeus figures like Keith Jarrett, for God's sake, and just keep naming them. Pat Metheny, well, I don't think he ever went. He actually went to Miami, which is where I ended up. But he was one of those pantheon figures too. And so he was a freak at age 14, probably. And, you know, Keith and Herbie Hancock and Chick and all those guys, they were playing with orchestras in their single digits, you know, age 9 or something. So I was the opposite of that. It was 8 more years after 9, age 9, that I started this. So when I was at Berklee, just trying to figure out what to do and just trying to get the basics together. I lived real close to New England Conservatory, close to Symphony Hall. So I decided, well, that was my next move, because I didn't know anything. I was just flying by the seat of my pants and just going over here. Oh, this looks interesting. Oh, how about this? Because I was from Williamsburg, Virginia, not a musical mecca. And so I was just trying to figure it out on my own. So I made an audition tape to New England Conservatory. I loved Chick Corea, and I wrote him a letter asking him about his music. And he was so beautiful. He wrote me back 2 times. I still have the letters. And I'd asked him for some sheet music, so he sent me some. So I tried to play some of this music. I tried to play this tune called Straight Up and Down. I don't think I can really play it well now. You know, I'm trying to play it then after having been playing for 2 or 3 years. And so the tape was terrible. I sent it to New England Conservatory. I had my little brother playing bass. He wasn't serious about bass. He could do it okay. This drummer we knew. Anyway, it was a complete shit sandwich audition tape. And so the guy called me up. Phil Wilson was his name. He's an old Berklee trombone teacher who now is the head of the jazz department at New England Conservatory. He called me back and says, look, I can tell there's something in there. I tell you've got something, but you're not ready yet. You should try University of Miami, said he. Again, I'm okay. I'm just taking the next suggestion and running with it. So, but I knew I needed some work. So I made that tape in Christmas time, 74, December. I made another tape in April after the 8-hour-a-day regimen. And it was miles better. I was playing simpler music, and I could actually kind of play it okay. So I got into Miami and then spent 2 years there, where I had a very tough teacher, Vince Lawrence, he was named then. His full name is Vince Lawrence Maggio, so he went by Vince Maggio in later years. He was really hard on me. He said, you're terrible. He didn't give me the usual thing that I've subsequently heard he said to a lot of people, other friends of mine who'd come through the Vince torture test. They would play for him, and he would say to them, "Well, how did you get in?" That would be his opening salvo. And he didn't say it to me. I guess I was a little better than that. But still, he said, "You're terrible. But if you do this and this and this and everything I say, then you won't be terrible." And he couldn't wait to move you off the piano to show you how to do it, because he could really walk the walk. He didn't just talk it. He really walked it. It was a deep soul, just a deep groove, Italian cat from Chicago who grew up sort of in the black church and had that deep well of groove. So he imparted a lot of that. After the initial ego blast of like, whoa, I'm in trouble here, I got with this program and got a lot out of it for my next 2 years and graduated. My first night at Miami, this is a funny story. So I've driven down from Virginia with my station wagon full of my Fender Rhodes piano and a little amp and whatever else, clothes and records and books. Got it all set up, and then it was an early evening. I decided to ride my bike over to the school because it was real close to where I was living. I was living in a garage apartment off this older couple's house, and so I go over to the music building and I hear this music in the distance. So I follow the music and I go over to a place that I later learned was called the Patio by the big pool, where a lot of northern rich kids went to hang out the whole 4 years at the pool. That was well known. They called Miami then Suntan U,
right?
But the music pool was a whole different thing. It was really great. I've come upon this band and they're just crushingly good, just amazing sort of Southern fusion, Southern rock meets Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I'm just going, oh my God, this is amazing. Who are these guys? And so at the end of their set, they go, "Thank you very much. We're the University of Miami Rock Ensemble." And I'm going, oh no, I'm in trouble. These guys are miles beyond me. Turns out this group had come back because their drummer, Rod Morgenstein, needed to do a senior recital to get his degree. And then they went back to where they'd moved to, Augusta, Georgia, to become the Dixie Dregs. Do you know the Dregs?
Yeah, well, I know Rod Morgenstein. He played with, who did he go on to play with?
Well, he's maybe most known for playing with Winger.
Yes. And he actually has a Berklee connection too.
Well, I think he taught there for years, I think. I don't know Rod well, but imagine hearing the Dregs play. I mean, they just were unbelievable and made me just want to stop. Maybe you want to just get my pack up again in my drive my station wagon back to Virginia. So that was mind blowing. And my dad wasn't too into me doing this. So he said, "Well, if you want to do this, then you pay for it." So I had to get a gig. I got a gig backing up this Spanish singer-dancer at the Holiday Inn at the Calder racetrack in Hollywood, Florida. And so I would put on my little disco suit and drive up and do that gig.
I'm imagining some of the recent Bruce Hornsby shows where you'll go from something classical to something pop to, are you expanding, are you running the gamut with the range of what you're playing, or are you just hammering out certain things, or what are you mostly doing?
Well, then I'm just trying to amass all the knowledge I can. When I was in Boston, the Boston Public Library was fantastic. They had this great record collection, and you could check out records like you checked out books from Boston Public Library. And so I went just gorged on that, and that's where when I really discovered modern classical music: Charles Ives, Ligeti, Eric Satie, Ravel. I wasn't getting too into the deep atonality, as Mr. Bernstein would say, that I got into later, much to the chagrin of my more white note life segment of my audience that really hates it when I do that now. But because I regularly inflict that upon my poor unsuspecting audience, and I apologize right now to them for that.
That's a great way of putting it. It's like Jim Gaffigan has his audience he calls his hot pocket audience, and it means that they don't really know his material that well. But your white note audience.
I'm trying to not live a white note life. I love, look, some of my favorite songs I've written are very simple, just straight white note. So many of them. But now and then I'm interested in pushing that harmonic envelope and trying to express a different emotion. I've increasingly through the years gotten into that. My most recent records are fairly dotted with it, chock-a-block with that music, much to the delight of serious aficionados who are interested in adventure and music, but sort of my original audience couldn't be bothered with it. And I understand it. I totally get it. But that I can't be imprisoned by that notion. I've got to just follow my own instincts. So in school, I'm just so interested in so much. So at Miami, that continued, but I got much more focused, more into really learning the jazz language, getting with my teacher, Vince, and who was a Bill Evans, Bud Powell guy. And I was a Bill Evans guy too. I wasn't so into Bud at that time, but I got deeply into Bud. And the jazz record I made in 2007 with Jack DeJohnette and Christian McBride, to drop some names, that was a serious comeuppance for me. That's also another good story about me getting my ass kicked by these two badasses. but that featured, I think, 2 Bud songs out of 10. So yeah, but I tried to steer them, try to mold them in my own graven image, and not just do Bud copies, because why do that? You already got the titan of bebop piano there, and so I couldn't come up to that. So anyway, that's what I was trying. I was just interested in a lot of music and just trying to learn about it.
And so after school, you go to LA to become a session musician. Is that right?
No. After school, we came back to Virginia. I say we, my brother and his wife, Ann, Bobby and his wife, Ann, had come to Miami. He'd gone to a little school at UM. They got a gig on a cruise ship for a few weeks. That was their big moment in Miami, which is still regaled with stories about that. So we went back to Virginia to start a band, because I had decided that in my school years I would buy a John Coltrane record, a Ornette Coleman record, a Joni Mitchell record, and I'd always find myself listening to the Joni record more. And I realized, I really like this music, but I really love this music. And so I thought, okay, well, then I think I know where I'm headed here, which is singer-songwriter world. So we went back to Virginia to put together a band. I got a couple of my Miami guys came to join us there. They made quite a commitment to move to Williamsburg, VA, and start playing. And we started off by just playing top 40. And top 40 disco funky is what we did to get a gig while we thought we were going to try to get our artistic trip going. And so I started writing songs. Then I was the self-designated songwriter. Nobody else seemed to be that motivated or sort of deeply interested in taking that deep dive. So I was the guy. Took me a while. So we played around the area. I graduated 77. We played around the area from summer of 77 until I moved to LA in the spring of 1980, because we had been discovered about somewhere in the middle of that 2.5-3 year period in Virginia. We pretty much played Virginia Beach to Richmond, back and forth, up and down, which was great for us. We didn't have to travel too much. Mm-hmm. We carried a little white baby grand piano that I bought.
Yeah, what kind of van accommodates a baby grand?
We had a pickup truck with a camper shell and loaded it into there, yeah. And we'd have some of our big, strong, great pals help us out. Bobby Hornsby, John Molo, and I were 3 sizable cats, I guess. I'm the big bony ass. Those 2 guys are big, strong guys. But anyway, so John Molo, right, he continued with me. He moved to LA with me. But that's right. We're playing the top 40 circuit, but gradually we're putting my songs into the mix between Brick House and Earth, Wind, and Fire tunes and Shake Your Booty. We're putting in my songs. And so we developed an audience. It's kind of a tough trick to be playing these lounges, but gradually it's a tough trick to gradually move it over to being just a straight cover band, to developing an audience that comes to hear you at the Steak and Ale Lounge that doesn't want you to play those songs. They want to hear your music. And that was something that we did achieve then. And that was, again, no easy trick. We were big fans at the time. We coming from jazz school, we were into Steely Dan. We liked Mike McDonald, his Doobie Brothers stuff, because it was sort of semi R&B jazzy a little bit. And so we liked him, and we long story short, we knew the Doobie Brothers were playing Hampton Coliseum. We're playing the Steak and Ale Lounge right down the road. And we found him. We knew where he was staying because the same people that booked our little bootleg ass lounge gigs also booked the Coliseum gigs. So we knew he was staying at the Sheraton. We walked in, John Molo and I, and he was standing right there in the lobby. So we go up to him, and we're towering over Mike, and we go up to him and say, hey man, we're the baddest motherfuckers in this town, and we're playing right across the street, so you should come hear us. Because we knew they had a night off. He said, well, I will if I can. We're going to go into a movie. So sure enough, he came over. So we had saved all my, what we called at the time, all my originals, you know. So we played this set, and of course, we're just wearing it out. We're just giving it up for the 20 people that night in the bar, including Mike and a couple of his roadie pals. So he was very taken with us, and he comes up and says, hey, come over to the place. Let's hang out. So we go over there. I thought, boy, this was easy after it happened. We're in the bar, and he's talking about this. Why you guys do this? And I go, man, I'm going to play you send me a demo. I'll play it to my man, Ted Templeman, the producer. And then he takes us back to his room, and he plays this. He said, this is our record that we have coming out tomorrow. And he plays this minute by minute, the album that really brought them back and made Mike, because it sounded so fantastic. What a Fool Believes, and Minute by Minute, et cetera, et cetera. So the next night, we're playing again, and they're playing their gig, and he'd given me his number. I called him. They're passing me through at the Sheraton Coliseum Hotel, and he says, yeah, I'm going to try to come tonight. So he did come to the gig. Somehow the word had gotten out, and the place was packed. It was Friday night, and Friday night as opposed to Thursday night is a big night. So he comes out, and we're just doing our thing again, and then he comes over and ups and sits in with us. I know you're made that way. You know, that song of theirs from Living on the Fault Line. Oh, it was just ecstatic. We went back to the place afterwards, and they invited, we sat in with them. Then 2 nights later at Richmond Coliseum, we listened to the music with them. And for a long time, I was known for being the guy on a shirt. The Doobie Brothers, about a year and a half later, did some sort of PBS concert, and he was wearing a Bruce Hornsby Band T-shirt on this concert. So that was my claim to fame. Alas, that was it. Most people have these great romantic stories of being sort of an outcast in their school, and then they put together this rebellious rock band, and they're playing the bars, they're slugging it out in the rock clubs. So it's a great story, but it's not my story. My story is we were playing, Brick House in the Sheraton Lounge until we weren't,
Right.
And so it's not very romantic, but that's my story. So through that, we didn't get much interest in our band because I think people thought our music was frankly too stylistically derivative. It was too much like these guys that we were just talking about. And, but they thought I had promise as a writer. So I got a publishing deal at 20th Century Fox. Okay, so that was 1980. I moved. We've been trying to get a record deal since 78. And so now I'm living in LA in 1980. David Geffen heard a tape that I'd made with the producer David Foster and wanted to sign me, but his A&R people were not feeling it. So that didn't happen. And was for the best. I wasn't ready yet. So I started trying to sort of break that music business wall down in 78. And I got signed in 1985. So David Geffen in 1980 says, Brucey, I want you to make records for me. And then 5 years later, I got signed by RCA. But it was for the best. I guess I'd call myself a slow learner. I started late as a player, started late as a writer. Took me a while to figure it all out.
But you're still doing it, which is the most exciting part,
Well, that's right, because I don't know. I just feel like my aim is true. I piss off people all the time, my fans, because I don't stand still. I'm always looking to find the new. Yeah, so 85 got signed. So my first record came out in 86, and this is now 36 years later. And so it's right now is also a very nice story because I've had this sort of late career renaissance brought on by 2 very different entities in the world of pop culture, Spike Lee and Justin Vernon. but actually not really so when you realize that Justin is such a soul singer. He's one of the great singers, and his background is totally the Harry Smith anthology of folk music and R&B and the Black gospel tradition. You know, he's just grokked that whole area of American roots music, and you hear it in his music. He's also such a great record maker. He and his team, Chris Messina, Brad Cook, et cetera, they make interesting records, but with a rooted sense of that old-time American music. So that's deep. And so Spike Lee is also deeply interested and moved by that same music. I don't think they know each other, but if they did get to know each other, they would have serious musical common ground.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because like when you look at your music on Spotify, you get the craziest You May Also Like. It's like, this is Copeland, instrumental bluegrass, Tupac, the best of. You know, those are the things that are associated with you. And everything runs the gamut, and you've done everything. When did you get to the point in your career where you realized, like, I can do whatever I want? I mean, I remember reading an interview with you after The End of the Innocents came out, and you kind of said, this is the end of my playing like this, or something to that effect, where you'd made a conscious stylistic choice there.
Well, yes, I'm restless. I'm always looking to move to a new place. I also felt that, frankly, it's a fickle world out there. You're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you have great success, do you choose the path of, okay, well, now I'm pegged stylistically as this one thing, and do I just continue to mine that? And we know great artists who have done that. Basically, their records have stylistically sounded the same from first record to 20th record. For the most part, sound the same. And so there are a whole lot of their original true fans who are still with them because those fans don't want them to change. Be the person that I like. And I get that, but that's not me. I thought I had done this piano and drum machine bit, piano and Lynn drum machine and a Juno or an OBX synth bass, one-man show stuff. I loved it. I just thought it was ironic and hilarious that when the first three records of mine are with the range, and then the next one is just Bruce Hornsby, and people would go, well, I really miss the old band sound. And sometimes I would reply, well, it's interesting you say the old band sound, because what you're referring to as the old band sound is me playing along with a Lynn drum machine, and me playing is one-man show stuff with maybe somebody, David Mansfield, George Marinelli playing a guitar over it too. And the one that says Bruce Hornsby is three guys in a room playing. That's the most band. Harbor Lights was. Now, it's a blurry picture. You can't paint it all with one color, because the last Range record was truly a band record too. That was the one where I thought, okay, enough of the Lynn drum. The band plays this music way better than the records show. So that's what we did. So there is that one version of the one Range record where you really hear the band. There's a really good German TV show called Rock Palast, and it's still sort of available if you dig deep on the internet. It's a 1990 show, Bruce Hornsby and the Range on Rock Palast. Played the gig with Living Colour, my future dear friend Vernon Reed, who played on my last record, Non-Secure Connection, played on some stuff for Spike and me. I have been restless and stylistically diverse, and so that's why you get Tupac next to Aaron Copland.
I'd imagine also that, that's the way it is. How the "Don't You Believe It"? I'm guessing you're really proud that line stayed in there.
Well, it's the key line. It's totally the line of the song, and a lot of people don't get that. They misheard it or just didn't hear it and didn't understand. But now, of course, with all the Tupac and Polo G and the Snoop Dogg versions, I think people really get the message now, and That's beautiful. But yes, but don't you believe him? That's the key line.
It's perfect. Your list of collaborators is as diverse as your list of you may also like recommendations. So I guess if you could tell me about each collaborator.
Robbie Robertson comes to mind. I had a great experience with him. Mostly these collaborations have come about with people calling me. I'm not much of a guy working the room. Sometimes I do, but not often. I called Robbie, though. This is one of the times where I called him because I thought I had a song idea that he might like. We'd become friends at the time. And he said, yeah, come on over. And so I did. And he liked it. We wrote the song, and that was Go Back to Your Woods. It's based on an old chant in my old high school basketball days, where we'd go down to Hampton Newport News, and the hood down there thought we were just country bumpkins, and they would just chant, go back to your woods. And I thought that's got to be there's a song in there somewhere. So Robbie and I wrote it, and we had a great experience. We played on Saturday Night Live. It was on his second solo record, Storyville. Made a video, recorded it with the Meters down there. Worked at Dan Lanois' place, Kingsway, where I worked later on my record, Spirit Trail. Met Chris Whitley during that time, one of my great musical loves, and the late, great Chris Whitley. And so there's one. Spike Lee. I've been working with Spike since 1992. He made a video for me for my song, Talk of the Town. I drove a cab around New York City in this video. He asked me to write a song for his end title for his Great Clockers movie. Shaka Khan and I wrote a song, kind of well known in certain circles, called Love Me Still. Whenever I play with the Roots, they always say, can we play Love Me Still on Fallon? I love them. And so, and that's continued on. It really ramped up in intensity in about 2008 when he asked me to score an ESPN documentary on Kobe Bryant called Kobe Doing Work. So that was kind of my audition. He wanted to see if I could hang and do something that he liked. And I ended up working with him for the next 11, 12 years, all the way up through last year, and amassing all this music. I wrote probably 240 different pieces of music for him in that time. He probably used about half of them. But through this time, I always kept thinking, well, this cue, I really love it. This cue gives me chills, and I think I should write a song over this music that I've written. And so I started writing to my own film cues. I'd never done it. It was a completely new experience, new way to write. But again, I keep talking about chills. I was giving myself chills writing the first song, which was a song called Absolute Zero, which ended up being the title song of the subsequent record. But at the time, I was also starting to work with Justin Vernon. He'd called me to do a duet with him he and his pals had always liked my version of the great Garcia Hunter song, Black Muddy River, on our record, Here Come the Noisemakers, our first live record from 2000, 2001 or so. And so we did that. I went to Eau Claire and we became friends, and it just kept evolving into a collaboration on the record Absolute Zero, where I went back to Eau Claire in 2018, and we worked on a lot of music. One song we worked on, we wrote together, ended up on the next Bon Iver record, I, which came out also in 19, same year as Absolute Zero. And and then I met all these people, and he had me come out and play his Eau Claire Music and Arts Festival, and it just turned me out. His festival was so beautiful. They had a modern classical stage where they were playing Frederick Reshevsky music for whoever was interested, for all 80 people who came. It just crushed me. I just loved this thing so much. So I've been brought into this world by Justin and found it so arresting and so inspiring. And so these disparate connections turned into this recent music where the collaborations have continued to run amok. James Mercer from the Shins. Yep. I always loved James Mercer's music. I love their record Wincing the Night Away is the one that kills me every song. And so I reached out to him, didn't know him at all. And he got back, and I sent him the song, and he said, yes, I'm in, I'll do this. So we did this duet, and Jamila Woods on that last record. And Justin and I did a duet on Absolute Zero, Cast Off, a song that we'd written together. And then this time, now bring us up to the Danielle and the Ezra collaborations. Ezra and I just talked a few nights ago for his podcast, Time Crisis. So he's become a great friend, and also his partner, Ariel Rekscheid, who also worked on this record on those two songs, Days Ahead and Sidelines. And so it's an exciting time. It's been this way for now several years. And I'm making a record now coming out for next year with another group that I met through the Bon Iver scene, Y Music, Rob Moose. We were talking about Elton John. It takes us back to the beginning, Tumbleweed Connection. What blew me away as much as anything, of course, the songs are fantastic, and that's the main thing. And the songs and the singer, Elton it's so great. But Paul Buckmaster's string arrangements were just transcendent to me. They just really were soulful and moving. And so I've always been looking for my Paul Buckmaster, and I finally found him in the person of Rob Moose, who I met at the Eau Claire Music and Arts Festival when his group Y Music was doing a gig with the great female British folk trio, the Staves, who also ended up on my Absolute Zero. So again, you enter a new environment and you go, wow, all this, man, how can
It's like, are you able to meet anybody and not collaborate with them almost?
Yeah. Well, look, obviously, I've met a lot of people and do not collaborate with them.
Right.
But it's a funny question, and it begs an answer. And so maybe no.
So all the people we've talked about, all the contemporary people, and then all the classic people, Grateful Dead, Elton John, Leon Russell, Mavis Staples, Dylan. Is there anybody that you haven't collaborated with that you're interested in collaborating with?
Well, I used to have a standard answer because people would always ask me about this, but it doesn't really hold for me anymore. So I don't know. I think at this point in my late 60s, it's not like I'm looking for yet another new thing to do. I have projects moving out into the future for a while now, and so I look at what I already have on my plate, and it makes me tired just thinking about it. There are lots of people who I think are fantastic, and if they called me, I would say yes. I most always say no now, but that's a whole different conversation. I used to be a cheap date. So I used to play on some people's records because I think they found out that I didn't charge them because it's not how I make my living. So I would just do that and still do that. So I guess at this point, maybe nobody, although I'm totally moved by lots of people. And so again, if one of these people called me up, I'd probably do it. But nobody that I'm thinking about, I'm going to call this person up because I'd love to do this.
Had you always, during these periods, had you always been staying up on new music?
I've always been interested. I've always tried to stay current, but I wasn't really as knowledgeable about the indie world as I became once I started being in that world, because you're in this world and they're talking about this guy and I'm the clueless clown in the corner going, well, who are they talking about? And I'll go check it out. But I think I got a little more interested a little earlier on in 2012, 13. I have this app called Google Alerts. It sends me an email every day or so when you're shouted out in something. It tells you good or bad. Somebody's just ripping you, and here it is. You can read all about it in Google Alerts, or the opposite. So about 2012, 13, I started getting rained on with all of these Google Alerts about this band Bon Iver. And so, of course, it made me, and then Justin shouting me out as an influence on his music when he was coming up. He transcribed Pat Metheny's solo on Harbor Lights, for instance. He was a total music nerd in the most beautiful way, in that way. So it made me curious. And so I started, we're now in the information age. We can just look up something. If you don't know a word, if you don't know what quotidian means, you can just look it up. So I started listening to this. I think the first thing I heard was Holocene.
Oh, yeah.
And I just went, wow, this is something really different and really moving and just great. And so that made me a little more interested in sort of people in a similar area. And so I started listening to the Nationals, say, and okay, well, there's really something in here too. For instance, I could keep going. But before that, I was more interested in, say, and I still am. I was more getting turned on to the modern in the classical world. I got deeply into Elliott Carter and still are. I still am interested. Olivier Messiaen, the aforementioned Ligeti, the great Hungarian composer, the etudes are just transcendent, et cetera, et cetera. I could keep going. And so that's what I was more into all that. And also just trying to hang on for dear life when I was playing bluegrass music with Ricky Skaggs in those years. So, so from Elliott Carter to Bill Monroe, again, that was that era's wide gamut for me. The new record, Flicted, that also runs a wide stylistic gamut. It has its area what I call the Bruce's EDM blues corner in the middle. Starts off with 2 guitar-driven songs. I'm playing Bruce H. McGuinn, Rickenbacker, 12-string stylings on the second song. The first song is Blake Mills. Then it goes, there's a palette cleanser after the bang, bang, bangs part, and that's Days Ahead with Danielle. And then there's folky dulcimer corner for 2 songs. So there is a range here.
What is it that gets you going with music, and why all these years? How are you still doing it and still exploring new territory? How is that happening?
I think anyone can see that I'm deeply involved in what I do. I'm just always searching for the new, searching for something that gives me the chills, or something that just gets me going. And it's in a different way. It's not always about chills. I like funny songs too, so right. That's a different way to try to move someone. And so what keeps me going? Everything I'm saying, all the outside input I get from other musicians, the collaborative situation, and the friendships that are made. That's as important as anything. I just like the hang with with new friends. It's been great fun and will continue to be, I think. And when it stops, then fuck it, I'll stop.
All right. Well, given Bruce Hornsby's track record, it seems like music always will be fun for him. Hopefully. Hey, if you want to have fun playing music and haven't tried Berklee Online yet, give it a shot. We'll take $100 off your first course. All you have to do, visit musicismylifepod.com, and you'll find the rest of the details you need right there. This episode was edited by Talia Smith, mastered by Jose David Vindis-Mora, who by the time you hear this will have already graduated from Berklee College of Music. A big, huge congrats to Jose, who has mastered 28 episodes of this podcast. Check out his own music production work at chevik.com. That is CHEVICK.com. All visual assets coordinated by Mike DeBenedictis. Social media by Brooke Larson. Web assistance courtesy of Mark Thomas, Steve Zimmerman, and Joe McDonough. I wrote and recorded the Music Is My Life theme song, but the expert remixing comes courtesy of Lily Dickinson. Special thanks to Gabriel Reifert Cohen, Greg Fauscher, Lou D'Adamio, and thank you for listening. Please leave a review on iTunes or leave us 5 stars on the Spotify app so that more wonderful listeners like you can find us. Talk to you soon.